I never expected to become the reason for his downfall. 2 weeks changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The rain poured down in sheets, drenching the world around me, drowning out my screams. My heart raced, each beat a reminder of what I was about to lose. The air was thick with tension, almost electric. I stood at the edge of the park, watching as the storm ripped through the trees, feeling as though it was mirroring the chaos inside me. That day, everything changed. Michael had always been my rock. He was the kind of guy who made the mundane feel magical. His laugh was infectious, a sound I'd replay in my mind like a favorite song. But lately, he seemed distant, lost in a fog that I couldn't break through. I remember the way his hands would tremble, his eyes searching, pleading for something just beyond reach. It was as if he was fighting battles I couldn't see, and I was helpless to save him. Our friends had noticed too. They whispered behind closed doors and exchanged worried glances over coffee. Emily, my best friend, squeezed my hand tightly one night, her voice shaking. "He's not the same, Sarah. You have to help him." But help felt like a faint light at the end of a long tunnel. Every time I approached him, I felt a wall rising between us. He was slipping away right in front of me, like sand through my fingers. 2 weeks ago, he got that mysterious text. I still remember the look in his eyes, a mix of fear and confusion. "I need to go," he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. The urgency in his tone made my stomach twist. I wanted to demand answers, to yell at him to stay, but instead, I felt my voice vanish. There was something unsettling about that message, something that shifted my world on its axis. As the days passed, strange things began to happen. He would disappear for hours, leaving only a note stained with ink smudges and a hint of cologne that lingered in the air long after he left. I started to find items of his tossed carelessly in strange places: a wallet under the couch, a shirt in the laundry that smelled of someone else. Was he hiding something? Or was it worse than that? The weight of uncertainty pressed on me. Each new clue felt like a dagger slipping deeper into my chest. The night was closing in, and as the storm raged outside, my heart raced with dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that my love for him was spiraling into a chasm, pulling me deeper into a darkness I dared not confront. I rushed to his apartment, my mind ablaze with worry. I stumbled through the door, ready to confront whatever shadows lurked in his world, but when I turned on the light, the room was empty, and there, on the table, lay an envelope marked with a single word: secrets. My hands trembled as I reached for it, the paper cold against my skin. What had I unearthed? My breath caught in my throat. What didn't he want me to know? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As my fingers brushed the edges of the envelope, a wave of anxiety washed over me. I could feel my heart racing, a tempo that matched the relentless storm outside. The word secrets echoed in my mind, taunting me like a specter pulling at the frayed strings of my sanity. With a deep breath, I tore it open, desperate to uncover what had been hidden away. Inside, I found a letter, the handwriting shaky and erratic. Each word seemed to drip with turmoil, revealing a side of Michael that I had never known. In it, he detailed his struggles, an internal battle that culminated in trepidation and despair. Each sentence was heavy, laden with shame. He mentioned the people who had threatened him, those who seemed to hold the reins to his sanity. It spoke of debts that hadn't been paid, dangers that loomed like dark clouds on the horizon. I could feel the tears welling up, blurring my vision as I read about his sense of hopelessness. He felt trapped and began to question everything about us, whether I could truly understand the depth of his pain or if I would only shelter him in my oblivion. My heart cracked a little more with every line. How could he think I would leave him? I would do anything for him, yet it appeared he had convinced himself that facing the truth alone was better than sharing it with me. With every sentence, anger and sadness warred within me, a tragic bleeding of emotions. I wanted to scream at him for hiding behind this wall, for not trusting me enough to let me in. And yet, I felt compassion too, pity for the burden he was carrying. It crushed me to know that he was afraid to share his truth, even with his closest ally. Just as I was about to fold the letter and process its weight, my phone buzzed violently on the table, snapping me back into reality. A message flashed across the screen, and my breath caught. It was from Michael. "I need to talk. Please don't be mad." My fingers hovered over the screen, and for a heartbeat, I considered refusing. How could he think I would be more mad than I was hurt? "Come home," I typed, the words flowing out with unexpected urgency. "I'm here for you, no matter what." As I paced the small apartment, memories of our shared laughter and love flooded back. The way he'd look at me across a crowded room, the warmth in his gaze felt like a candle flickering against the night. It was hard to reconcile that Michael with the man hiding behind his secrets, cloaked in shadows and whispers. Minutes crawled by like hours, each tick of the clock echoing louder in my ears. When the door finally creaked open, I felt a shiver run down my spine. Michael stepped inside, his expression a mix of dread and determination. He looked different, haunted. The storm outside battered against the window, drowning the atmosphere with an urgency that was palpable. "I read your letter," I said softly, my voice strained but steady. "You should have told me." His eyes widened in surprise, and a flicker of something fear? Regret passed through them. "Sarah, please," I interrupted, my heart racing. "Whatever it is, we can face it together. I won't turn my back on you." "You have to believe that." Michael stepped closer, a storm of emotion swirling within him. But then, just as I saw a glimmer of hope in his expression, the sound of a car screeching to a halt outside interrupted the moment. The front door rattled hard, and before I could react, two figures loomed in the hall, demanding to be let in. My heart dropped as I recognized them. The people from the letter. The dangerous shadows Michael had mentioned, the very reason he had been retreating into silence. "Michael. Open up!" one of them shouted, their voice dripping with menace. "We need to talk." The look on Michael's face changed, a visceral panic flooding his features. In that instant, I knew that everything I thought I understood about this moment, this man, was about to unravel in ways I couldn't have anticipated. The door shuddered under the weight of their insistence, each thud echoing like a funeral march in my ears. I felt the air shift as the atmosphere collapsed around us, a tangible dread settling like a fog in the room. Michael backed away instinctively, his posture tightening as if he could shrink away from the inevitability of their presence. "Sarah, we need to get out of here," he whispered, urgency threading through his voice like an electrical current. His eyes darted to the window, scanning the street for an escape that wouldn't come. "Michael, don't," I pleaded, but even as I spoke, I could see the fear pulling at his fragile resolve. It was a look I had seen before, one that twisted my stomach into knots. The kind that said he was ready to confront his monsters alone, even at the cost of losing me. "We can't let them in. They'll ruin everything." The desperation etched in his features deepened, and I felt my heart shatter a little at the thought of him facing this alone. "We have to leave now." But how could we leave when his troubles had stormed through our door uninvited? Panic surged through me, battling the instinct to protect him. "What do they want?" "We can face this together, I promise." His gaze met mine, searching for some semblance of reassurance, but the shadows lurking beyond the door demanded a darker truth. "Open up, Michael. We know you're in there." The taunts cut through my resolve, twisting like a knife buried deep in my chest. I could feel a heavy weight descending upon us, one that threatened to suffocate any flicker of hope. "Stay behind me," he instructed firmly, taking a step forward as if to shield me from the ray of danger looming over us. I wanted to protest, to shout that I'd faced frightening things before, but the raw intensity of his expression silenced me. Then, with one final, shuddering breath, he approached the door. "What do you want?" His voice wavered, betraying the real terror hiding beneath his bravado. "Let's talk business," said one of the men. I recognized him, Jesse, a familiar face from the darker corners of Michael's story. I told you I need more time. Michael's voice cracked, the bravado crumbling under the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears. Just give me until next week to come up with what I owe, is that so? Jesse replied, the tone as cold as steel. You think we're playing hide-and-seek here? We're done waiting. I could feel my pulse quicken, threatened by the impending darkness. The mental image of what this confrontation involved twisted something deep within me. Would they hurt him? Would they try to drag him back to what he had fought to escape? And me, what would they do to me if I interjected? But I wouldn't let fear define our moment. Somehow, we would weather this tempest together. I am not letting you do this alone. I burst out, stepping to Michael's side despite the perilous gravity of the situation. Whatever mess you're in, it doesn't have to drag us down. I love you, and we get behind me. Michael snapped, panic mixing with protectiveness. I can't let them. Before we could say another word, there was a loud crash as the door flew open, splintering against the wall like a puppet string severed in one swift motion. The men stood there, imposing figures against the hallway light, shadows stretching like claws towards us. Too late for that, kid, Jesse sneered, stepping inside. The other man followed, eyes glinting with a dangerous thrill. It felt like watching wolves approach prey, and I held my breath as the air crackled with unspoken threats. Leave her out of this, Michael said, his voice shaking but resolute. But it was clear in his eyes that he couldn't guarantee my safety. The fight within him was dimming, and I knew I had to enter this battle to restore the flickering flame of hope. Sarah, go. He hissed under his breath, but the words struck me with the force of betrayal. How could he expect me to run? How could he see me as anything less than his partner? No, I'm standing my ground. I shouted defiantly, stepping up to the men. What do you want from him? Why don't you just talk about it? Jess's laugh echoed strangely in my ears, carrying a sweetness that soured quickly. Oh, darling. This is just business. You wouldn't get it. But he clearly thinks he can shield you from the harsh truth. The reality that you might be our ticket to his freedom or his downfall. Suddenly, a precarious weight hung in the air, heavy with implications. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. What did he mean? The tension eclipsed the room, holding us in suspense like a noose slowly tightening. I had stepped into a bear trap, and with every second that ticked away, the cage threatened to close around us. As the storm continued to rage outside, crashing sounds echoed in intertwining waves of fear and uncertainty. My hands clenched into fists, the stakes rising higher than I could have ever anticipated. I had unwittingly become the center of a struggle I didn't fully understand, and time was running out when Michael turned to me. His haunted gaze bore the anguish of someone fighting a war within. We're in this together no matter what that means, he whispered fiercely, and in that moment, a bond deep as the ocean surged between us. Just then, Jesse stepped forward, the sinister grin returning to his lips. Well then, let's make a deal. My breath hitched as dread coiled tightly around my chest, the weight of unseen consequences looming over us like a thundercloud. The revelation of who I had unwittingly become to his downfall settled ominously in my gut. And it was clear, our lives were about to change forever. In the oppressive silence that followed Jess's chilling statement, I felt the world around me shrink, folding inwards like an origami crane, each crease and bend holding the weight of my dread. I had known that Michael's past was a dark tunnel filled with threats and shadows, but never had I imagined I would find myself in the precarious center of that void, poised between love and the looming specter of betrayal. Is that your way of saying I'm leverage? I shot back, emotion coursing through my veins, a mix of defiance and fear. My heart pounded in my chest, fighting against the sudden tightness in my throat that threatened to silence my voice. Jesse's laughter rang out again, sharp and bark-like. Look, sweetheart, call it what you want. But if you think you can just stroll into Michael's life, you're sorely mistaken. He owes us, and you're just collateral damage to us collecting that debt. I am not collateral, I exclaimed, taking another step forward, ignoring the way Michael shifted beside me, a silent plea for me to retreat. I couldn't allow myself to be reduced to a bargaining chip. I love him. Just, tell us what you want, and we can work something out, such a hero, Jesse mocked, swaying ever so slightly, a predator enjoying the thrill of the chase. But here's the thing, this isn't a negotiation. You don't get to pick the terms. Michael can't pay his debts, and we don't do charity here. Help him? You better start thinking of a way to repay those dues, sweetheart. Otherwise, he's about to face the music with or without you. His words dripped venom, igniting fresh waves of panic in me. I turned to Michael, whose face was twisting under the weight of the moment. The anger he harbored wasn't directed towards me, it was a suffocating mix of shame and frustration aimed at himself. Michael, please, there has to be a way out of this. I cried, willing him to hold on, to grab at the last shreds of solace before they vanished into the abyss. A flicker of hope caught in my throat as I tried to comfort him, even as I felt the heavy reality close in. You are not defined by your past. We can find a solution together, but he didn't answer, his gaze anchored to Jesse, the fight within him churning restlessly. The walls felt like they were closing in, pressure building as footsteps echoed from the street outside. I caught a glimpse of our lives flashing before me, so many plans suspended in the air like fragile glass baubles, now threatened by the weight of this dark reality. Then there was a sudden commotion outside, a cacophony of voices joined by the throaty roar of engines. A flicker of confusion crossed Jess's face as he turned towards the noise, his posture losing some of its sinister energy. Just then, a glimmer of hope spun through my mind like a hopeful prayer. Maybe they've come to help us. I whispered urgently, my heart quickening with a dangerous anticipation. Michael's expression morphed instantly, a flicker of potential liberation shining through his despair. No one's supposed to know where I am, he breathed, adrenaline surging as he began to form a plan. Sarah, we have to find a way to use this moment, then let's move. I urged, grasping his arm in a quick, reassuring squeeze. We can still beat them. If there's ever a chance, we have to take it. At that moment, Jesse sneered, his focus splitting between us and the door. You think you can just run? Let me make this very clear, I won't let you leave. Not without a price. Suddenly, with a loud thud, the door flew open again, but this time it was not Jesse or his partner who stood there. Several men in uniform stormed in, guns drawn, shouting commands that reverberated through my bones. Relief and fear crashed against each other, twisted together like vines on a climbing wall. Put your hands where we can see them. One shouted, though my heart was pounding too loudly to catch the exact words. The confrontation shifted as the room spun in chaos around me, the reality of our situation crystallizing into something I couldn't fathom. Realization struck. These men were here to serve a greater authority, not in our favor, but against Michael. I glanced at him, shocked horror reflecting in his eyes as he grasped the magnitude of the unfolding events. No. He shouted, a raw edge underscoring his voice. It's not what you think. Jesse, however, stood frozen, the tide of power shifting like a delicate balancing act. You called the police? I didn't. Michael glanced back at me, desperation etched into his features. I swear. The uniformed men ignored him, advancing with efficient precision, their eyes scanning for a threat. In that moment, I caught sight of Jesse slipping towards the back, a flicker of determination flaring in his eyes as he aimed for the door. Without thinking, I broke away, intent on blocking his retreat. You're not going anywhere. I shouted, fueled by a sudden surge of purpose that ignited my heart like a flame against encroaching shadows. Then, as our paths collided, Jesse shot me a twisted grin, an unsettling glint in his gaze that sent chills down my spine. You should have backed down while you could, darling. Everything halted, an agonizing moment suspended in time, filled with harsh reality and impending dread. I realized then that my choice had sealed our fate. Michael's future, my future, everything hung by a fragile thread, fluttering into the unknown, and as I drew closer to Jesse, a dark impulse snapping into place, I felt that precariousness spiral around me like a current, its grip tightening with each second. The window of hope was closing, and all choices led into a storm of uncertainty. A new chapter of our devastating journey had begun, teetering on the precipice of destruction, and I could only brace myself for the falling tide. With the situation escalating into chaos and betrayal threatening to swallow us whole, I glanced at Michael, desperation morphing into an unyielding resolve. Whatever lay ahead, we were caught in this tempest together, two souls fighting against the shadows that once threatened to drown us, oblivion looming just over the horizon. As the police advanced, the chill in the air heightened, wrapping around me like an icy shroud. I felt the chaos descend, a whirlpool of voices and accusations echoing through my mind. "You shouldn't have involved yourself with him," I remembered Jesse sneering, somehow able to pinpoint every insecurity that held me captive. But in that moment, it was no longer just Michael's past I had to reckon with, it was my own choices, my unyielding belief that I could save him, stop him. I yelled, my voice tearing through the chaos as Jesse darted toward the door, determination fueling his escape. The officers, stern and unyielding, were focused on Michael, their expressions unrelenting as they moved closer, each step thunderous against the silence hanging in the air. But Jesse was a fox, a cunning predator, and in this game, my heart couldn't afford to hesitate. I bolted toward Jesse, the floor creaking beneath my frantic feet. I could feel the officers' eyes flicker toward me, a blend of anticipation and confusion on their faces as I lunged to block the exit. But he was quick, his body a familiar shadow that had danced around the edges of my consciousness, and for all my resolve, I miscalculated the distance. He sidestepped me, a foot away, his eyes somehow glinting with twisted gratitude. "Running away, Jesse? You think that's your only option?" The taunt emerged breathy yet fierce as I regained my balance, steeling myself against a world that seemed to turn upside down. But his laughter, that horrible bark, cut into the air like a serrated edge. "You think this is about me?" Jesse shot back, a strange sort of venom dancing in his words. "You're the prize, sweetheart. He's the one who brought you into this mess. All those little moments of connection, the fragile trust you built, it's all a facade." I felt my heart plummet, grief colliding with fury. "You don't know anything about love. You're just a coward hiding behind manipulation and fear." "This isn't a game." In the eye of the storm, Michael shouted, his voice strained. "Sarah. Don't." But those words barely penetrated the din, overshadowed by the officers shouting directives. As chaos erupted, Jesse took advantage, slipping through the door. I let out a strangled sound, the weight of my decision crashing over me. The officers would pivot next, and all the world I longed to shield would shatter into fragments around me. No. I screamed, my voice breaking as I turned, desperation clawing at my throat. "Michael." I was barely able to grasp what was happening, but somehow, I knew that even coming together in solidarity might not be enough to tether our disintegrating worlds. Before I could step back, officers moved to restrain Michael, their hands gripping his arms, forcing him down. "You don't understand," he cried, his own panic twisting through the air like a vine full of thorns. "I didn't do anything wrong. I can explain." But the men did not listen, their eyes locked onto him as a suspect. My heart thundered against the walls of my rib cage, each beat resonating with the gnawing fear that threatened to consume me. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. We were supposed to stand together against the darkness, to fight. As the officer turned towards me, their eyes seeking answers, I felt a sudden surge of clarity. Jess's empty promises, the bitterness of Michael's secrets, it all rushed in one crippling wave. "Wait. You need to hear me. He's not the criminal you think he is," I implored, crying out. "There's someone else involved, Jesse. He's the real threat here." One officer glanced at his partner, uncertainty flickering between them like candlelight struggling against the dark. "We're going to need you to step back, ma'am," the officer said, tone hardening. But as I opened my mouth to protest, I caught sight of something out of my periphery, something else that made my blood run cold. Another figure moved into view, a woman, her blonde hair whipping about her face, wielding a post of authority that registered in the air. My heart dropped as recognition settled in. It was Rachel, a familiar face from the company I had once worked for, the mutual friend who had unknowingly bridged the gap between Michael and me. "Sarah?" she gasped, disbelief written across her features before quickly shifting her gaze to Michael, concern overtaking her stance. "What's going on here?" At that moment, I realized the weight of the stakes had shifted dramatically. It wasn't just Michael's fate that hung by a delicate thread but my own. My voice faltered as I caught the enormity of what I was about to disclose, the decision cloaked in urgency. Rachel, listen to me. Jesse is manipulating us both. You have to trust me, we need to stop him. With that, the world teetered on the brink once more, left dangling between revelations and betrayals. The chaos continued to swirl around like a tempest, but within the storm, I saw a glimmer of hope reflected in Rachel's eyes, a flicker that could either spell salvation or doom. But before anything could unfold, the air filled with a jarring sound, the thunderous roar, and an engine's growl that felt like an omen. My throat tightened as dread coiled itself into a tight knot, and I realized it wasn't over yet. Far from it. Just then, the door burst open once more, this time revealing a silhouette that sent shockwaves through my entire being, a figure cloaked in shadows, a reminder of everything we had been fighting against. My blood ran cold as Jesse emerged behind them, an insidious smirk plastered across his face. Looks like the real show is about to begin, he taunted, and in that moment, I felt everything shift once again. The battle had only just begun, and the consequences would be catastrophic. The die had been cast, the threads of our lives entwined like an elaborate tapestry, teetering on the edge of destruction while hope flickered dimly away in the darkness. The air thickened with tension, a palpable force that had everyone on edge. I could feel my heart racing, each thud vibrating through my chest as Jess's mockery hung heavy in the air. There he stood, a master of puppetry, ready to orchestrate the next act in this twisted drama. It was as if time froze, the world around us faded into a blur while I focused on the encroaching darkness that Jesse epitomized. Step away from him, Jesse! Rachel shouted, her voice breaking the suffocating silence that had enveloped us. I could see her brow furrowed in fierce determination, mirroring my own resolve. But this was a game of calculated moves, and Jesse thrived on the chaos. Why would I do that? He replied, his grin widening. I'm just giving the audience what they crave, a little drama, a little heartbreak. Isn't that right, Sarah? His words pierced through me like shards of glass, each one a reminder of the vulnerability I wished to hide. I could almost hear the echo of my own thoughts, clashing against the walls of my mind. Was I truly the pawn in this malevolent scheme? Enough! I stepped forward, forcing my trembling voice to hold the weight of my conviction. You may think you control this situation, Jesse, but you're mistaken. The truth has a way of exposing lies, and you're standing on the wrong side of it. My words fought to climb above the din, imbued with a shaky confidence that felt foreign yet empowering. He merely chuckled, that dreadful, chilling sound reverberating, slicing through the anxiety that buzzed around us like angry wasps. The truth? Oh, sweet Sarah, your naivete is charming. But let's not pretend you're in control here. What do you think happens when you start pulling at threads? You might unravel the very fabric you're trying to save. As if on cue, Michael stirred beneath the weight of two officers, his brow knit with confusion and pain. Sarah, please, just stay back. His voice quivered, a desperate plea that threatened to unravel whatever was left of my resolve. I felt the rush of emotion swell, looping tightly around the central core of my uncertainty. Jesse's threats were indisputable, tethering me to a dark reality. But deep within, a flicker of defiance ignited, a reminder of who I was before this storm crashed into my life, before I lost myself in Michael's division of light and shadow. Whatever you think you've gained from this, Jesse, it won't last, I declared, my voice rising as the words burst free. You might have created chaos, but what you can never touch is my strength or my determination to protect the ones I love. Protect? He shot back, eyes narrowing into slits. How charming. But what happens when your love only leads to ruin? It was then that I noticed Rachel's shifting stance, a flash of uncertainty crossing her features. She hesitated, her uncertainty fueling the doubt in my heart. What if this plan fell apart? What if her doubts outweighed my convictions? I know you think you're invincible, Jesse, Rachel interjected, steeling herself. But you're forgetting one thing: we aren't alone in this. We are stronger together. His smug expression faltered for just a moment, as if considering the weight of that statement. But the moment was fleeting, quickly replaced by a coal-black resentment. Together? How sweet. But you'll find alliances can fracture just as easily as bonds, especially when betrayal creeps in. Suddenly, the door swung open again. An officer stepped in, tense and grave, causing us all to pivot as he announced sternly, "We have reason to believe this situation is escalating. We need everyone to step back now." The officer's words sparked renewed urgency, igniting the dread that was already coiling tightly within me. I felt a sudden chill that had nothing to do with winter's breath brushing against my skin. My thoughts raced. What was happening outside? Were there more agents at play, dark intricacies weaving deeper into this nightmare? Jesse seized the moment, his smile returning like a dark wave crashing upon the shore. "Oh, dear Sarah, you have no idea what's coming. But it's going to be quite a show. I hope you're ready for your world to flip upside down." Before I could formulate a response, fear gripped me like a vice, knowing that the stakes had become impossibly higher. The officer's face hardened as he motioned toward the exit in an attempt to diffuse the charged atmosphere. "I need you all to calm down. This is not a game." But he had no idea. He had no idea just how deep this game ran, how entangled we all were. As I cast a glance toward Michael, his tortured eyes mirrored my own turmoil, reflecting the wreckage of everything we once fought for in this chaos. Then, in the split of a heartbeat, Jesse made his bold move. He lunged toward me, and I flinched, instinctively stepping back, a scream ready to escape my lips. But Rachel was faster, she moved with purpose, intercepting him, and in that moment, I recognized the unexpected courage that surged through her. Just as she grasped his arm, the disruptive sound of shattering glass echoed around us, startling, abrupt, and utterly catastrophic. My pulse escalated as I turned, the world spinning into chaotic disarray once more. Glass shards rained down like fractured promises, and my heart sank. It was chaos reborn. But amidst the turmoil, I saw Rachel's fear-bound determination, heard Michael's desperate yell, and felt Jess's presence swell dangerously close. In that instant, I realized, despair lurked at our doorstep, but unity was a challenge that could ignite the shadows threatening to engulf us all. Uncertainty loomed like the dark clouds above, but I knew there was no turning back now, and just then, as I reached toward Michael, trying to bridge the distance between us, everything shifted again. The door swung wide, answers just outside reach, and standing in the threshold was an unexpected figure that would forever alter the course of our battle. "You're all missing the key piece to this story," Jesse exclaimed, his voice echoing ominously as he pointed behind me. I dared to look, heart racing, caught in the web of dread and hope as the final threads of our fates began to intertwine. The room erupted in chaos as my gaze fell on the threshold. My breath hitched in my throat, the figure standing there was all too familiar. It was my brother, Alex, the shadows of my childhood and the warmth of my memories intertwined within his presence. But the lightness of his arrival clashed violently with the darkness of the moment. "Alex!" I exclaimed, a sense of disbelief clouding my reason. I wanted to rush to him, to embrace the once familiar fortress he had always been for me, but the choking tension held my feet in place. The enormity of this situation began to sink in, weighing down on me like lead. Jess's smile twisted into something rotten, his eyes glinting with malicious glee. Well, look who decided to join the party. Sarah's little hero, come to save the day? Oh, how quaint. But I fear even he can't shield you from the truth that looms just beyond those pretty words." Alex stepped forward, his expression hovering between protective and confused. "What's going on?" "Sarah, I heard screams. Are you all right?" He hardly glanced at Jesse, clearly assessing the situation, assessing Maya's concern cutting through the static of fear in the air. "We'll be fine, Alex," I reassured him. The words felt weak, more like a spell cast to ward off the clutches of despair than an honest acknowledgement of reality. The air felt hot, charged with the electricity of unraveling emotions. "Fine?" Jesse scoffed, wrapping his arms around his own body, feigning empathy. "Your sister is caught in a snare of lies, and you think the mere presence of an older brother can save her? Sweet sibling love won't protect her from the wreckage I'm about to unleash." "You're wrong, Jesse," Alex said, voice steady despite the turmoil around us. "Sarah doesn't need saving, not from you or your delusions of grandeur. We'll fight you, and we'll win because we believe in something bigger than your twisted games." I could feel the tremor of Alex's unwavering confidence seep into my bones. But the flicker of hope was ambushed by a swell of questions. How had he gotten here? Had he seen what I had? The anguish wrapped itself around my heart, reminding me that Jesse's words, whether they were false or not, buzzed vigorously, seeking out my weaknesses like a predator honing in on its prey. Jesse clapped his hands together, mock applause echoing through the room. Bravo, Alex, truly. But do you really know the lengths to which I've gone to prepare for this moment? You think I'm the one rattled? Everyone has a breaking point, and soon Sarah's surviving facade will crumble. You underestimate the revelations still to come. I felt a rumble deep within, an unwilling confrontation waging war against the beliefs I wanted to protect. My gaze flitted between Alex and Rachel, and I couldn't help but notice the flickering flames of uncertainty in their eyes. Was it possible that Jesse was weaving a web of doubt that we couldn't escape from? Suddenly, a loud thud sounded from outside, and panic rushed through the air like wildfire. An officer, flanking the door, stumbled into the room, out of breath and wide-eyed. We need to evacuate everyone right now. There's been a breach. I turned to Alex, who looked as taken aback as the rest of us. What does that mean? What's going on? But the officer's presence seemed to enliven Jesse. A breach, you say? He purred, spinning on the officer with sinister delight. Well, that's just the beginning of the show, isn't it? I think it's time to expose the puppeteers who pull the strings behind this facade. Jesse, this is insane. Rachel shouted, fear igniting her frantic movement. If you really care about anything, just stop this. Care? He almost laughed, the sound raspy and laced with bitterness. Oh, sweet Rachel. I care about the chaos that ensues when truth is laid bare. When I unveil what's hiding in the shadows, you'll all understand, and the gravity of his words settled over us like a shroud. My heart raced as dread filled the spaces with echoes of impending doom. A personal fractury of fear that burned brightly in my chest spoke volumes about the truth we each carried, secrets buzzing beneath our skin like electric currents waiting to ignite. As the officer's urgency flooded the room, I assessed my options through a haze of dread and desperation. I knew we had to act quickly, but the realization of how interconnected our lives had become felt like a launching pod, a precarious balance of hope and despair. Alex stepped closer, determination evident in his posture. Whatever it is Jesse thinks he can do, we'll counter it. You're not alone, Sarah. Stand with me. We can face whatever truths that lie ahead. In that moment, I felt a flicker of strength blossom within me. My brother's presence was a lifeline, a reminder that, though chaos loomed and the abyss beckoned, I was not ensnared alone. Together, we stood against the tide of destruction. Yet as quickly as the light shone, doubt crept back and the fragments of Jess's hold still resonated, whispering insecurities that once clawed at me in silence. Just when I thought the rift couldn't deepen, an unexpected tremor pulsed through the room, vibrating with the beat of our collective heart. Wait. I gasped, suddenly aware of something stirring within the name Jesse had dropped, an unwise wish to explore the depths of his chaotic tapestry. What do you mean unveiling the puppeteers? Jess's infuriating smirk rematerialized. Ah, dear Sarah, when the time comes, you'll learn that secrets don't hide as well as we think. The truth is both a weapon and a bond, a revelation that will shake you to your very core. But I'll leave you with this, who here is truly the puppet? And who, little sister, is pulling the strings behind the curtain? Before I could respond, the lights flickered, leaving us in a disorienting twilight. My heartbeat drummed in my ears, an unsteady tempo of anxiety and dread. The shadows played tricks, and it felt as though the walls themselves were closing in, echoing Jess's twisted contemplation. But the door swung wider as shouts erupted from the outside, crashing in with urgency. I felt my grip on hope teetering. What outside force had the ability to breach this fragile sanctuary? And worse, what hidden truths awaited discovery that could crack open our fragile alliances? In that moment, as I clutched the threads of unity we were weaving, I sensed a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. The questions lingered, unanswered and heavy with the weight of impending revelations. I turned, catching a glimpse of Rachel's intentions mirrored in Alex's fierce gaze, knowing that the darkest revelations were still yet to come. As the urgency pressed on, the echo of frantic footsteps merged with the murmurs of confusion that thrummed throughout the room. We need to move, the officer yelled again, his voice cutting through the disarray like a knife. Panic gripped me, and I instinctively reached for Alex's hand, our fingers intertwining as if we could tether our hearts together against the chaos surrounding us. "Where do we go?" Rachel's voice was small, yet it resonated with the weight of uncertainty that now enveloped us all. The shadows cast by Jess's taunts loomed enormous, blurring the boundaries between friend and foe, truth and deception. "The back exit. Now." The officer barked. I could see the beads of sweat lining his forehead, a testament to his own fear. We had all become characters in an unfolding nightmare, and the only option was to flee. Alex tugged me forward, each step felt like we were escaping from a quicksand of despair. Yet every choice we made was like walking a tightrope stretched taut above a gulf of dark what-ifs. Our feet landed heavier with every stride. The uncertainty of what awaited us intensified, the world outside was unraveling, and I feared it held horrors that would challenge everything I knew. As we neared the back exit, I glanced back at Jesse. He was rushing toward us, his cruel smile replaced with a frantic energy that only added to the thick tension in the air. "You can't run from the truth," he shouted, his voice barely controlling the thrill of madness. "It's going to find you, no matter where you hide." I wanted to scream back at him, to declare that I was done grappling with hopelessness, but my throat was painfully constricted. The door loomed closer, a symbol of a new unknown. If the chaos pitted against the forces that bound us together could be just a step away, where would that leave us? Suddenly, something glimmered in Jess's eyes, a flash of desperation that could only be driven by something more profound. His fixation on the truth felt like an obsession that transcended mere cruelty. It was a shattered reflection of his own dark secrets, waiting to spill forth in a catastrophic reveal. "Sarah," he shouted, this time with a vulnerable edge, "you don't even know what you'll be losing." With a resolute shove, Alex propelled me out the door, my instincts taking over as we tumbled forward into the cool air. The world outside hit me like an icy wave. There was no silence, only the frantic movement of officers, frantic citizens, and the distant wail of sirens that pierced through the chaos like a beacon of dread. "Stay close to me," Alex commanded, scanning our surroundings. Rachel followed, her eyes darting about, seeking refuge but finding only uncertainty in the mass of fleeing bodies. But then, through the disarray, I caught sight of something new, someone positioned against the alley wall, watching our escape. A woman, clad in dark clothing, her expression unreadable yet starkly familiar. My heart skipped. "Mom, Sarah." "Alex. Over here," she cried out, beckoning us with urgency. Confusion swept through me as disbelief tangled with hope. Could it truly be her? I thought she was gone, lost in shadows that Jesse had woven around our family story. "Mom, is that really you?" I gasped, breaking free from Alex's grasp as I rushed towards her. "There's no time," she urged, her eyes wide, glistening with both relief and fear. "You need to trust me, we have to go. Jesse knows more than you think." "The truth," she hesitated, her voice trembling. "It involves all of us." Just as her words settled over me like a shroud, the door behind us crashed open. Jesse stormed out, his face painted with an expression I struggled to comprehend. Was it rage, or merely desperation? "Sarah," he called, his voice taut, "don't listen to her. You don't understand what's happening. The web of lies is just the beginning." He took a step closer, but Alex stepped between us, protective and resolute. "Stop. This isn't a game anymore, Jesse," Alex shouted, tension arching through the air like lightning. "You're hurting people. Don't do this." But Jesse laughed, a chilling sound that echoed the turbulence of his spiraling descent. "You think this is about hurting people? You're all pawns, but the game has only begun. The secrets." He stopped, sudden fortitude flickering in his eyes. "The secrets are not what you think, Sarah, and am the only one who can unveil them." I turned back to my mother, my heart racing as I faced a brutal reality that felt far too close. Jesse's desire to expose the truth was a fierce storm, and I was standing in its path, suspended between light and dark. "What do you know, Mom? What has Jesse uncovered?" She tightened her grip on my arm, panic swirling in her gaze. "Sarah, I'll explain everything. Just get away from him." In that decisive moment, as the world spiraled into chaos around us, I felt the fabric of my existence begin to unravel. Torn between fierce familial loyalty to my brother and a deeper, pressing loyalty to my mother, the woman I thought was lost, my heart pounded heavily in my chest. "Mom," I swear I started, but my words were interrupted by the sound of shattering glass. Nearby, a muffled explosion rang like a thunderclap, swirling fragments of uncertainty that could only be the harbinger of secrets unraveling. The ground shook beneath me, and screams erupted from all directions. As I turned to witness this mayhem, I sensed Jesse slide into the fray, eyes glinting with grim satisfaction. "Welcome to the reckoning." He laughed, a manic joy spilling from his lips as if he were conducting a symphony of chaos, and just like that, the threads of my reality twisted into a knot of despair, anger, and uncontrolled urgency. I realized then that we were not merely caught in Jess's web of deception, we were woven into a tapestry far richer, one that would unveil depths I had never fathomed. "Run!" I screamed, and as we darted into the swirling uncertainty, the cliffhanger loomed. We were propelled into a chaotic storm without knowing what we would face next. The truth felt like both a knife to my heart and the key to my survival, and with each step forward, I understood we were teetering on the edge of a precipice, ready to plunge into the unknown. The night air was thick with tension, every breath a reminder of the chaos that surrounded us. The world felt upside down, a cruel distortion of the life I once knew, and as I clutched my mother's hand, the fear of losing everything consumed me. Together, we pushed through the throngs of panicked people, their faces a blur of confusion and terror. Alex was beside me, a steady presence in the whirlwind of emotions. Behind us, I could still hear Jess's mocking laughter, a haunting echo that seemed to chase us through the darkness. "Where are we going?" I shouted, barely able to hear my own voice over the cacophony. Just trust me," my mother replied, her grip tightening around my wrist. I wanted to trust her, yet doubts gnawed at me like ravenous wolves. After everything, how could I believe she hadn't left us behind willingly? "We can't stop until we reach the safe house." "Safe house?" Alex shot her a questioning glance, brows furrowing with concern. "What do you mean, Mom? Do you know something we don't?" "You don't understand," she hesitated, her eyes darting anxiously back toward the chaos. "We're in danger. Jesse is not the only one who knows what really happened. There are others, and they're looking for us. We're not just running from him." For a moment, dread pulled in my stomach like lead. My brother had always seemed like a mere antagonist in our lives, the villain of our family saga. But now, he was just one player on a stage much larger than I'd ever imagined. "Mom, what are you talking about? What can possibly be bigger than this?" I pleaded, my voice trembling. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, a loud crash echoed behind us. I turned instinctively and watched as a few shadows dove into the fray, men draped in dark clothing, their expressions hard as stone. My heart raced when I recognized them as reporters, chasing the chaos for the next big story. I pivoted back to my mother. "We have to keep moving," I urged, but doubt thickened the air between us. Where could we possibly go? What would we do? The ground beneath my feet felt as unstable as my faith in this entire situation. We dashed into a narrow alleyway, the walls closing in on us. The flickering streetlights cast ghostly shapes that danced against the brick. It felt suffocating, as if the world was trying to squeeze out the truth. "Mom, what did Jesse mean by the truth?" I pressed, almost desperate for any piece of clarity amidst the turmoil. She bowed her head, momentarily lost in thought, and her silence felt like an insurmountable wall. "He wants to expose everything. The lies, the family secrets, our past, it all connects. Sarah, there are things you don't know, and they could change everything." Suddenly, the atmosphere around us shifted. I could feel it in my bones like an indiscernible energy that danced at the edge of my awareness. Ahead, a figure emerged from the shadows, startling me back into reality. It was a girl, no older than about 16, with disheveled hair and a look of steadfast determination. "Get back!" she shouted, waving her arms as if warding off an unseen threat. The urgency in her voice sent a shiver down my spine. "They're coming." "Who?" I questioned, glancing at Alex and my mother, confusion etched across all our faces. "More of them," I overheard. You've got to go now, while you still can. The girl looked straight at me, her eyes round with intensity, as if she were peering into my very soul. You don't understand, they want to stop you from ever finding out. A deep sense of discomfort settled in my gut. Finding out what? But before she could respond, the distant sound of sirens drowned her words. The chorus of chaos closed in again, and instinctively, I grabbed my mother's hand. We have to go, I urged, dragging her along as Alex followed suit. A flicker of fear ignited in the girl's expression, but she quickly masked it with resolve. Wait. She called after us, her voice fading in the distance. Don't let him get to you. It's not too late. As we vaulted back into the throngs of fleeing people, a horrifying thought gripped me. Was Jesse merely a pawn, twitching at the ends of strings he didn't even control? And were we not only running from him, but from a past that threatened to swallow our hopes whole? Racing toward a narrow street, I felt a cloud of uncertainty settle over me. My mother's words loomed over me like an oppressive weight. Before I could process my conflicting feelings about the unknown family secrets, a roar of engines echoed behind us. My heart dropped. They were coming. Sarah! My mother shouted sharply, this way. We ducked into another alley, and with one final glance back, I spotted Jesse standing there, silhouetted ominously against the faint orange glow of distant flames, those haunting words once again ringing in my ears. The web of lies is just the beginning. I turned to follow my mother and Alex, but that image clung to me like sticky webbing. In the growing murkiness of our reality, could it be possible that in this moment, I, too, would become the reason for his downfall? As my heart raced, I grasped for the threads of understanding, but the fibers of dread only tightened around me, and as we ventured further into the depths of uncertainty, I couldn't shake the feeling that the storm of revelations was just beginning to unfurl its darkened wings. I woke up in a haze, the kind that envelopes you in soft cotton, confusing what's real and what's not. My eyelids felt heavy, and for a moment, I didn't remember where I was. But then the memories came rushing back, the chaos, the echoes of screams, and Jess's sinister laughter swirling in my mind like a storm. I bolted upright, my heart thudding wildly against my chest as panic engulfed me. Sarah? Are you awake? The voice was familiar, yet it felt like it belonged to another reality. My mother was there, her face illuminated by the dim light of a lamp. I blinked hard, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep like they were shadows clinging on too tight. We're safe for now, she said, relief flooding her features as I finally focused. You were unconscious for a little while. We had to hide. The weight of everything pressing around me began to lift incrementally, but a sense of foreboding settled like a lead weight in my stomach. What happened? I croaked, longing for clarity but fearing the answer. We found a safe house, a place I can trust for a moment. Her voice trembled but steadied, meeting my eyes with a resolve that sparked something deep within me. But we don't have time to dwell on that. We need to talk about Jesse, about everything. The mention of his name jolted me upright, adrenaline spiking through my veins. The blindfold of confusion fell away, unveiling the terror that had threatened my family's very existence. Jesse wants to expose the truth. He won't stop until he shatters everything. Yes, she said, her gaze unwavering. But hey, race, what you need to understand, Sarah. She grasped my hands tightly, a deep sincerity pouring from her eyes. That truth he speaks of? It's not all bad. Some of it could free us from chains we didn't even see. What do you mean? My voice cracked with disbelief, a swirl of anger and confusion rising within me. How could any of it ever set us free? She took a deep breath, collecting her thoughts as if choosing her words carefully, like they were fragile glass. Jess has been holding on to power through our secrets. But if we confront them together, if we face what he's afraid of, maybe we can transform this crisis into our opportunity. The Herculean task before us felt daunting, yet somewhere inside a flicker of hope ignited. Together? Yes, but only if you are ready to accept the truth, even if it hurts. Her voice trembled with emotion, and I felt the tears welling in my eyes again at the weight of all we had faced. I'm ready, I said, my voice steadying against the impending tide of pain. If this fracture in our lives is what he wants to exploit, we must wield it as our weapon. Anything to protect this family. My mother nodded, her expression serious. Sarah, we have more power than we realize. You need to remember that love and vulnerability can shift this battle. It's what we've always had that he never will. Finally, it hit Meth very bond that had been strained and tested could bring us victory. If truth carried us through the storm, knowing the depths of our shared scars could be our greatest strength. I will not let your sacrifice mean nothing, I promised, and the tremor in my voice couldn't mask the conviction in my heart. There's more to the story than what Jessie knows, she said softly. The pieces tie back to the choices I made years ago. It's time I let you in. As she began to explain, memories flared back to life, hints of wounds we had buried under a facade for too long. Secrets of betrayal, choices made in desperation, and the entangled fates of family that had been reduced to whispers of shame. My heart ached as I realized how much she had suffered, how she buried her past to protect us from its weight. In that moment, we became partners in a shared mission. As she finished uncovering the painful truths from the shadows, I held her gaze, both afraid and grateful. It was within this vulnerability that acceptance finally emerged. Just then, the room shifted. Alex burst through the door, his expression wild with urgency. They're coming. We need to move. Fear crackled in the air around us, a raw energy that propelled me forward. We're ready, I said, standing tall as my mother and brother flanked me. But as I gathered the last vestiges of strength, a chilling laughter echoed down the hallway. Jess's voice threaded into my skin, hinting at the impending confrontation. You think facing the truth grants you any power? How naive. In that instant, I felt the gravity of our path unfurl beneath the trembling bounds of our resolve. Every step we took toward him would be a deliberate act of defiance, a reclamation of our own identities. We're not afraid, I shouted, my voice unwavering, steady as the ground we stood on. We're ready to break your hold. The door swung wide open, and there he stood, cloaked in shadows stretched too thin. The confrontation felt charged, and I could taste the victory that dangled within reach. What's the matter, Sarah? Afraid the truth will slip through your fingers? His malicious grin deepened, teasing the unraveling of our family bonds. But as I steadied myself, I recognized the flicker of fear that momentarily crossed his face. Was it the truth he hid behind the threats, or was it our collective strength he underestimated? Truth is a double-edged sword, Jessie, I responded, taking a step forward while clutching my mother's and Alex's hands. And we've chosen to wield it. For the first time, he faltered, a realization dawning upon him that the very bond of love he taunted could become our greatest weapon. Bringing forth those buried secrets and facing them head-on would regularly illuminate the darkness he sought to exploit. As I stared him down, I felt the courage swell within. Whatever you think you can do to tear us apart, it won't work. His face shifted from contempt to bewilderment. You think unity brings strength? You'll falter just like the rest. Maybe, I said, my determination surging as our bond fortified, but we'll do it together. In an instant, the power dynamics shifted. We understood that our unity overshadowed his manipulation. It was in that moment of acceptance, laughter drifted from the shadows, and a voice echoed that felt distinctly like my father's. You're stronger than you've ever known, Sarah. As reality collided with a newfound clarity, I saw our truth illuminate the discord of the past, breaking through the frightened chains that once bound us. Let the truth set us free, I declared, and pushed into the light, fully prepared to face whatever awaited on the other side. The journey had forged scars but also catalyzed resilience, and when we moved toward the storm, it felt as if we were stepping into a newfound freedom. As we thrust forward, all I could feel was that our story was not over yet. And in a world painted with shadows, I finally understood the power of love, vulnerability, and truth. Our truth. They would be the rhythm I danced to in this storm of chaos and acceptance, the final chapter bridging the fractures of our lives into something unbreakable. Jesse may think he has the upper hand, but we would unveil his downfall with every heartbeat, for the shadows of our past only revved the engine of our future. At that moment, I knew, we'd emerge stronger, and the truth would carry us home.